Alright, here we are. You can see I have everything that I need spread out over the stove. Maybe you'd want to do it on a countertop instead and have your pot sitting on some kind of a heat pad on the countertop. I usually just do it here on the stove. It makes it easier to clean up for me. I've already gone to each jar and I've given the rim a wipe. Even though they're brand new jars, they are not likely to have anything on the rim, but they could have mild nicks or something like that in the glass. So I've checked them all once with my finger. And you can see I've got a canning funnel that's made out of stainless steel, a very handy tool that I bought quite a few years ago at Lee Valley, leevalley.com, great store. Basically what I do is I just have everything sitting on the top of the stove like this. I'm going to rotate the pot to get that handle out of my way, get that as close as possible so that I can come right over here and not get dripping on my stove, even though invariably that will happen. And I just use my ladle and ladle it in. That's all we're doing. So I fill it up to the proper fill level. Now I said that this is not a home canning guide, and I mean it, so well, maybe I will show you what a proper fill level is, what my recollection of a proper fill level is. You should really read a book and verify this yourself, but I usually do at the bottom of the neck is the proper fill level. That is my recollection of a proper fill for canning. So basically I just do that, fill one of them up to the proper level, and then I move the funnel. I take this guy over here, I give the jar rim another wipe because it could have obstructions from what we just ladled in there, and then I just put a snap lid loosely on the top. I do that mainly to keep stuff from falling into it. Now I'm not going to put the rings on at this point just yet. You know, we've got pets here. Maybe there's going to be cat hair floating around in the air, whatever, or just to keep anything from falling down in there. So I just do that. I ladle them full. Let's do another one here while you're watching. Just simply ladle it full. Give the rim a wipe and put the snap lid on loosely. Move the jar out of place and move another one into place. So I'll just do all of these up until we're all done here, and then we'll come back to you. Okay, there you see, all done. I've applied the rings finger tight. I've got a dozen jars there. It worked out to be just exactly a dozen, with a little bit of sludge left over, a bunch of chicken parts and stuff in the bottom. Naturally, I'm not going to let that go to waste. Holy moly, that's good. I don't waste anything. Not much anyway. I figure if I'm going to be eating animals, I should be at least respecting them enough to use them properly, use all of them, and don't let anything go to waste. And it's a frugal thing to do as well. I gotta say, this broth is absolutely fantastic. When I was making the soups earlier, I had 3 bowls of soup in addition to the 6 liters of broth that I have here. There was probably another 1.5 liters that went into bowls of soup. The soup was spectacular with no spicing, just a bit of salt. I just had the salt and plain chicken broth and chicken and noodles, and that was it. Nothing, no pepper, no other spices or anything. It was fantastic. Oh my goodness, it's spectacular broth. Okay, the pressure cooker is back, the pressure canner. Here you have it. You can see we haven't seen these yet. These are the trivets that come with it. Basically, one goes on the bottom of the canner, and that keeps the jars from sitting right on the bottom. That's extremely important actually, because if the jars sit right on the bottom, they have a much greater chance of bursting when they are being processed, because the heat from the burner underneath is transferring directly to the bottom of the jar, which can make it explode. And I have done that in the past before I've done it in the past using my smaller pressure cookers as pressure canners, which you aren't supposed to do. The books you read will tell you that that's not safe. I did it anyway, even though it wasn't safe. I don't recommend that you do it because it ain't safe. So now we put the other trivet on top. Actually, before we put the other trivet on top, I like to put the water in because it's easier to see my fill level. So hold on, I'm going to pause this and fill that with water. Okay, you can see I've filled it maybe an inch or 2 centimeters below the tops of the jars. The other trivet goes in and I start packing them up here. So this is pressure canning. It is a different game altogether from kettle canning, which many of you may have done. There are some very, very important differences. You got to read the books to find out what those differences are. One of them is, you know that in kettle canning the jars have to be covered with water. If you're doing kettle canning without a pressure canner and you aren't covering your jars in water, if you're just leaving them like I had that bottom layer, then you are not doing it safely and you might kill somebody. So, another thing, speaking of killing somebody and not doing it safely, all the guides recommend not to put in 2 different size jars. So I'm breaking the rules right now. I'm risking somebody's life, but I've read a bunch of books and I have 15 years experience and I do this knowingly, and I believe I have a good idea what the risks are. You shouldn't do this until you've read the books, 3 or 4 of them, and have 15 years of experience. So now we just put the lid on there, crank up the heat, and that part you've seen before, although it is a little bit different now that we're pressure canning and not pressure cooking. You got to be really, really anally retentive about things when you're canning. Cooking has a lot of leeway. Okay, I've got it all sealed up now, everything's screwed down tightly. I've got my stove on high, so judging by our previous experience, it's probably going to be at least a half an hour before this comes up, so I will set it to 35 minutes, just as a reminder to me if I don't already hear the hissing here, and then we will continue on. Okay, it's venting now. When you're pressure canning, this is an important difference with pressure cooking. You have to let this vent for 7 minutes. So I can't set the timer because my wife is cooking supper here at the same time, but I'm just going to time 7 minutes on that, and then I'm going to put the petcock on there and bring it up to 15 psi. Alright, and on goes the petcock at 15 psi. And now we just wait for this to come up to 15, and once that is done, we turn the heat down and set our timer.